Hi, my name is Kelvin Newman and welcome to the Brighton SEO podcast, where we share talks from one of the world's most popular search and marketing conferences. The event started out as a few people meeting in an upstairs room of a pub and is now attended by over 3,000 people from all over the world. This episode is a recording of one of the speakers at a recent event.
So to keep things moving, let's invite Gemma to stage. She's going to talk about why international SEO isn't just about multilingual.
So good afternoon, everybody. I think we've just got past 12 o'clock. So just a little bit about me. I work for an international digital marketing company and happen to be one of the only people in the company who is not bilingual or multilingual, which is why I sort of come up with my topic. I am looking at this slightly from a paid search point of view, but a lot of these points can be seen from both a paid search and an SEO side. So a few things that we're going to go through today: the differences between international and multilingual, a case study of the English language, and then some best practices for creating international non-multilingual PPC campaigns. So a little bit about my experience and why I am talking about this topic today. When I was 18, I travelled from the north of England to the US to study at the university. And when I got on that flight, I thought that, I was just going to another English-speaking country, everything would be the same, there wouldn't be many differences. And the first thing that I noticed when I got there is that I was called foreigner, and I didn't understand. I thought I speak the same language, I'm the same. But actually, if we look at the definition of a word foreigner, I am actually a foreigner. And it didn't really matter if I spoke the same language or not. The other difference that I realized quite quickly was that there were language differences. So in the north of England, where I came from, I would often greet people with "you all right?" And they would often be, "Yes, I'm good, how are you?" However, if someone said to me, "What's up?" I would get defensive. I'm fine, nothing's wrong. However, in the US, these two simple greetings actually mean the opposite. So if you see somebody, a friend that you might have seen on campus, you'd be like, "What's up?" I'm good. But if you say "you all right?" to somebody, they get defensive. So instantly, I was greeting people new friends that I made, and was already getting confused because people thought that something was wrong with them. So why is it then important to understand the difference? So traditionally, as mentioned, multilingual, I think we all know, is someone who speaks more than one language with equal fluency. But should different dialects of the same language be treated as multilingual? In my opinion, they should. So if we then look at international can actually refer to language, it can refer to dialect, but it also can refer to culture. And we need to remember these three things. So, is there one common language? We all speak English, or most people in this room at least speak English as a first language. But actually, there is different versions of English in different dialects. The English we speak in the UK compared to US, Canada, Australia all differs. The same would be for Spanish. The Spanish spoken in Spain compared to the Spanish spoken in Mexico is different. Same with French and Portuguese. So, if we have a little bit of a quick look at the English language, for the purposes of this, we're looking at British English versus North American English, but there are also a lot of other different dialects from Australia, Bangladeshi, New Zealand. But there's sort of four major differences: spelling, vocab, collective nouns, and past tense verbs. Most of us will be familiar with the spelling difference between UK English and US English. Simple things like in the word colour, in the UK we'd spell O-U-R, in the US is O-R. The drop in organise, if we change S to a Z. Simple little changes with the spelling differences. There's also differences in vocabulary. I saw there's up to 4,000 words in the US that aren't actually used in UK English. And a lot of us will be familiar with flat in the UK that is apartment in the US. There's also some difference with collective nouns. In the UK, we quite commonly would use the term, his company's legal team are investigating the matter. We would use the plural. However, in the US, they would use the singular. His legal team is investigating the matter. And also with past tense verbs. This was actually, from my personal experience, I had an argument with an English teacher because I used past tense verbs in a paper that I wrote and lost marks because I was told that they were incorrect. In the UK, we might use leapt, dreamt, burnt, learnt, but in the US, they use regular past tense verbs: leaped, dreamed, burned, learned. So, I know that a lot of us in the UK are probably familiar with the terms that Americans may use. However, in my personal experience, it wasn't actually always the case the other way around. So, we have a look at a few different scenarios. So, meaning, search engine, population, long-tail keywords, spelling, and the relevancy of the message. So, if we start with meaning, most people in the UK, when we know the term jumper, would know that it is the item on the left. That is what we know as a jumper. However, in the US, that item of clothing is actually different. In the US, it could be a sleeveless collarless dress intended to be worn over a blouse or a shirt. So if you had that particular keyword and you were using that in your keyword research, would you actually be targeting the same product? In the two different countries, it's a totally different item of clothing. It's also not just an item of clothing, it's also the name of a popular film that was released quite recently. So if we then look at the keyword research and we look at some search volumes, we can see that in the US, there was 90,500 searches a month for the term jumper. But what are people actually searching for? Are they searching for an item of clothing that we're on the top half of our body? Are they searching for a dress? Or are they actually looking for that particular film? We need to know the audience. We need to know and understand what that term means in the local country. Another example is purse and handbag. In the UK, a purse is the item on the left. We would all call that a purse. However, in the US, what we call a handbag is what they call a purse. Again, if you're running campaigns, if you're running PPC campaigns, and you're using purse and advertising the product on the right in the US, you wouldn't actually be advertising the product that people are searching for. So again, we need to know the local audience. We need to make sure we're localizing. And if we look at the search volume here, just a quick look. If we look at, actually in the US, there's the same amount of searches for purse and handbag. In the US, that's the same item, but in the UK, it's a different item. So again, we just need to know the differences between those two products. It's also make sure that we're using culturally appropriate terminology. In the UK, a nappy, we would all know that this is a nappy. In the US, they use diaper. Actually, if you search for the term nappy in the US, actually two articles that come up, it has actually historically been a derogatory term. So again, understand the cultural uses of that term. The second point we're going to look at is search engines. So in the recently released by Bing, I think they now say that their market share in the UK is 23%, and their market share in the US is 33%. So that equates to about 14 million users in the UK, 95 million users in the US. That's a big audience. If we then look at some particular keyword researchers, in the UK, for the terms pushchair and pram, there are actually significantly more searches on Bing every month than they are in the UK. If we weren't targeting Bing, if we weren't running campaigns on Bing, we would be missing a significant amount of potential customers just by not running campaigns on that search engine. So again, we can see in the US, there are also considerable searches on that engine. So don't forget to be using Bing as well as Google. Also, the size of the population. The US is 5 times bigger the size of the UK. So when we're looking at search volumes, if we look at the first term here is socks. There's only 22,000 searches on Google in the UK. There's 110,000 on Google in the US. So instantly we might think that's a lot bigger market share. But actually, the percentage of the population is exactly the same. So don't think that if you only have 22,000 searches in the UK, that actually you're not having as much impact as you are in the US. Long-tail keywords. Most people would know that this is what we would call braces. This is a term that is used in both countries, the UK and the US. However, braces also refers to an item of clothing in the UK, this particular item of clothing. So it might be for male or female. However, in the US, this item of clothing is not called braces, it's called suspenders. But if we search for suspenders in the UK, we're looking at a completely different product. We might be getting confused. And if we're using that particular search term, we don't know. We're not targeting the right people here. So again, if we just look a little bit at the keyword research, If we look in the US, for example, for the term braces, there's 135,000 searches on Google a month. But if we just look at the term men's braces, there's 260 searches. Because if people are just looking for that particular keyword braces, and we're not looking at more long-tail keywords, we're actually targeting the wrong product, we're targeting the wrong audience. Also, if we have a look then at suspenders, there's 60,000. So if we were targeting the US and we used men's braces, and we didn't use suspenders, we would again be missing a huge amount of the target audience. One of the other simple fixes that we can do is spelling. Just having a look at the search term pajamas. In the UK, we spell it with a Y. In the US, they spell it with an A. In the UK, for the term with a Y, there's 33,000 searches. But in the US, there's only 5,000. If you were targeting the US market and you were using just the UK spelling of the term pajamas, you'd be missing most of your target audience. So again, just little things. Know the spelling in the local language. And also, the relevancy of the message. In the UK, for example, we take longer holidays. Often we'll take a 2-3 week summer holiday. In the US, though, they have a lot less holidays than we do and don't tend to holiday for the same amount of time. So if we were to target our UK audience, we might target them with holiday offers that are 2 to 3 weeks in the summertime. But that's not how we would target our US audience. In the US, it's often just weekends away. Or potentially you could target people over the 4th of July weekend, which is a local holiday in the US. But again, you wouldn't target your UK audience with the 4th of July. It's not a holiday that we celebrate. Another thing also to note, if we're targeting the US and we're targeting weekends away, if our target audience is in New York, would we advertise to them a holiday in California for a weekend away? It's a huge, huge difference. It's a long way to travel. We wouldn't target them in the same way. However, in the UK, we can get to most places for a long weekend. Another thing on the point of localization within localization. Would you advertise winter tires to somebody who was living in Florida or Southern California? Probably not. That product is not actually relevant to that target audience. So again, if you're targeting the US with particular campaigns, you also need to target within the US. You need to localize within the US. And just a few other points on landing pages. And this again, this applies from a paid search point of view, but also from your SEO. Is it a basket or a cart? In the UK, we use basket. In the US, you use cart. What is the currency that you're using on your page? Make sure you're using the correct currency. In the US, also to note that they don't add tax on their prices. We have tax in the UK. The date. To us in the UK, this would be the 5th of October. However, a date written like that in the US is actually the 10th of May. It's a completely different date. So it's just knowing little things that could show that you are localizing to your target audience. Also, with your payment methods and delivery options can differ per country. So a couple of key tips. When you're running international campaigns, even if they are not multilingual, we need to give the same care and pay the same attention to those campaigns. Treat them almost as if they were multilingual. It is the same language, yes, but there are some considerable differences between the languages. And also, localize your campaigns. Make sure you do keyword research from scratch. Know the meaning of your keywords. Don't forget about using Bing. Remember to use long-tail keywords in certain instances. And some simple things, change your spelling and make sure your message is relevant to the target audience. And remember, if we don't localize campaigns, we can't expect to have the same results across all countries. Thank you, guys.
This was originally recorded at a Brighton SEO conference. If you want to listen to more episodes or find out about the conference itself, you can do at brightonseo.com.